Good evening to one and all present here. I extend a very warm welcome to all on this very important occasion. I request Sri Swami Swatmananda Ji, Sri Rajiv Malhotra Ji and Sri Amish Tripathi Ji to come on the dais.
Swamiji, Amish, such an honor and delight to share the stage with you. I want to express my gratitude to Swamiji. In the 1960s, before I think most of you were born, I can see, my education, my knowledge in Bhagavad Gita was from Swami Chinmaya in Delhi. Every year, he used to, in Connaught Place, when it was called Connaught Place, a big park, he used to set up a place for teaching Bhagavad Gita every night. And so, my parents used to take my brother and I every night for several months, and we would go through the whole Bhagavad Gita. Children would sit in the front, then in the back were chairs, adults would sit, and Swamiji had a big BMI, like a board. B was body, M was mind, I was intellect. And he had this long stick like a schoolmaster, pointed out. So clear in my mind, such clear fundas that Swamiji taught us. And with humor, with anecdotes, but also very rigorous, very detailed, never doing more than just a few shlokas in a night. And we would cover the whole Gita, and then this would be the topic of conversation on the drive back to my house and dinner and so on. And next year my parents would bring me back for the same thing. So we did this several times. And I kept in touch with Swamiji even after I moved to the US at the age of 20, and he would make tours. So, and I felt that he was a real ambassador of Hinduism after Vivekananda, Swami Chinmaya. So I'm very delighted. So I would like to request Swamiji to please give your discussion, your views, comments on the new book, The Battle for Sanskrit. It would be a real honor. Yeah. Thank you so much.
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् Rajiv ji, Amish ji, everyone present here, Hariom, Namaskar. Many of you are aware we are celebrating the birth centenary year of Swami Chinmaya ji. And inspired by the knowledge of Vedanta, which he learned from his guru Swami Tripathi Maharaj and Mother Ganga, Swamiji came down from the Himalayas and started the movement from Pune. And his first talk which he gave was in Pune in the Rastapet temple. And he began the talk saying, a Hindu temple as the venue, a Hindu Swami to talk, audience is Hindus, and the topic is, let us be Hindus. And throughout his life, as Rajiv ji mentioned, he was an ambassador of Hindu culture, and he, in his own inimitable style, he would say that my mission is not only to reach Vedanta to the masses and empower the lives of people with maximum happiness, but it is also to convert Hindus to Hinduism. You see, the need of the hour, which was then, has in some ways got fulfilled, but in some ways got intensified also. But today there is much more need to convert Hindus to Hinduism. And the awareness is very less about the essence of Hinduism. The fringe elements of Hinduism are a lot which are getting overhyped up. And to understand Hinduism in its essence, Sanskrit is a very, very important necessity, I would say. We depend a lot on translations, and I am just going to give you 2 examples of how translations have actually destroyed our pride of Hindus in Hindu culture and created so many rifts also in our country. Like we did our play in our Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, we did a play called Adrishya, and it was based on the Saraswati river. And the book also has a lot which mentions about this aspect. So, just that one simple word in our culture, which is Aryan. In Sanskrit, Aryan means a gentleman. Arya is a gentleman. And our country was also called Aryavarta many times. It's a country of gentlemen, people. So, the translation of that, when it is done as a race of people who have come from Central Asia, and then they brought the knowledge to this country, and then they have written the Vedas, and the image that intellectuals also have is that this knowledge is written by barbarians who are nomadic people, tribal type of people who have come from the other places. So what respect will they have even for the culture and what is written in the Veda, and this thousands of years old, what is written there. So the whole misinterpretation, I'm just giving you one example. Like that, there have been so many examples of how the words have been misinterpreted, and a whole Aryan invasion theory is created, and the Aryan and Dravidian divide is there, and Hindus are made to feel low about their culture, that it is not their native intelligence. Even if there are gems which are there in the Vedic culture, it has come from outside. Second example is a simple word which we use all the time, which is itihasa. Now, literate. So there is a classification of knowledge in our country. In our the Vedic knowledge has been beautifully divided, classified from ancient times, and there's different categories of books. Itihasa is the epics. Puranas are the 18 Puranas. Then you have Veda, Vedangas, the Smritis, and so many other granthas we have. But the translation of that word itihasa is mythology. Exactly. How is the translation being done? Translation is mythology. So we learn from childhood that Ramayana and Mahabharata are mythology. Mythology means what? It never happened. It's just a myth. And a collection of myths, so it's a mythology. And even today, so many doubts are raised or not that Ramayana did it even happen, Mahabharata did it even happen. They may be having a lot of poetry, symbolism, various other forms of literature, but does not deny that those things did not happen. But the translation, when it is done with that malicious intention, literally the word itihasa means itihasa, it has happened. So now the point here is, the title of the book is The Battle for Sanskrit. And it is a battle because there are many vested interests inside the country, outside the country, doing so many things. But instead of going into those aspects, as far as I am concerned, what the book has done is a lot to make us aware. But I feel as a solution-oriented suggestion is that instead of blaming anybody out there, if we have to learn our own scriptures, if we go into the depth of our own scriptures, we learn the language of Sanskrit, we promote it, and we understand Sanskrit so that we learn our scriptures directly and propagate that, it will be a very, very important contribution to keep the culture of ours alive. And please remember, why should this culture be alive? Our topic today is Sanskrit and Sanskriti. Why should this culture be alive? Today it is first and foremost the oldest living civilization. The Saraswati Sindhu civilization is the oldest living civilization. That's not the only reason it has to be alive. The inherent beauty of this culture is such that it is a universal, all-accommodative culture. Even a simple fact of namaste when we say, it is such a deep meaning that I salute the divinity in you. There is a divinity in you, there is a divinity in me, and I salute that divinity in you. Irrespective of caste, gender, caste, community, creed, gender, any of that. A universal culture and a spiritual culture at that. Thousands of years it takes to build a spiritual culture. It is not easy to go against the senses and the mind, which are generally extrovert. Thousands of years it takes to build a culture, and the great masters have done that to lift the person's view of life from a materialistic, extroverted, enjoyment-oriented view to a spiritual view. It has taken thousands of years. And not only it has taken thousands of years to build that culture, it has sustained that. That's the beauty. In spite of so much of attack, even at the physical level, so many attempts to destroy, the culture is still living and surviving. A vital, throbbing culture, not like Greek or Roman or Mesopotamian or Egyptian culture, which is right now only in museums. It is a living, vital, throbbing culture. So it is a very important aspect that our culture must survive. And if we understand this fact that this is a culture, if this survives, freedom survives in this world. If this culture goes out, freedom to practice culture goes out from this world. And we have to understand that very, very clearly and deeply. Whatever be our idea of secularism, the true secular culture is the Hindu culture. Very beautifully it says that just like all the rivers reach the ocean, everybody who follows whichever path, Sarvadeva Namaskara, Keshavam Pratigacchati. Any path you follow, you will reach that same goal. This is the culture which gives the freedom. You can be an atheist, a non-believer, and you can still be a Hindu. From a non-believer till the formless worshipper, all types of devotees, non-believers, seekers, everybody is accommodated. That's the accommodativeness of this culture. And so when we say freedom of thinking, freedom of speech, freedom of practicing what is my culture, our children must have, the next generation must have that culture, that freedom. So it is very necessary that Sanskrit and Sanskriti both are very deeply rooted, connected, and this must be preserved. Apathy of one generation. See, it takes thousands of years to build a culture, but apathy of one generation is enough to destroy it. One generation says, I don't care about this. It is over. So I want to end with just these four important words. One is aware, second is care, third is dare, fourth is share. That I must be aware of the beauty of my culture, the glory of my culture. And to know that, I must not only learn Sanskrit, I must also go into the essence of this culture, which is the Vedanta. Then the misinterpretations which are there also will not be there, and the rigidity which is there, that also will not be there, because rigidity is not a part of Hindu culture. Adaptability is a part of Hindu culture. It has survived for so long because of adaptability. It has adapted itself to times again and again, and even today it continues to adapt. So awareness has to get created. So the beauty of this book is that it will make us even aware that what are the issues actually. How the Western influence is slowly but silently having a degrading effect on our own thinking, our own culture, and we learn to scoff at our own culture and think we are great intellectuals and take great pride in that. Second word is, so first word is the aware, that we need to create awareness within ourselves. Second is, when I am aware, then only I will care for it. Through the language of Sanskrit and through the understanding of my Sanskriti, Swami Chinmaya used to say that without culture, man is a vulture. how will we even live the higher way of life? If today there is so much problems in the society, one of the reasons is because more and more the culture is becoming individual oriented, selfish type of a self-centered culture. Here is a culture which says serve everybody in the spirit of yajna. In the happiness of everyone is your happiness. Sarve bhavantu sukhino is that culture of ours. So if I have that understanding through awareness, then I care for this culture. And I will do what it requires. So the third word is dare. I will dare to stand up for my culture. Unfortunately today, how many people even stand up for the culture? They will take a very diplomatic stand saying, no, I am secular, I will not talk about this has nothing to do with me. Where is that courage to say that this is the culture which has survived in this country, and I have lived, my parents, grandparents, they have lived this beautiful culture and we have grown up in this culture. Why should this get extinct? I need to dare to stand up. For that I have to educate myself, understand. And then comes the fourth aspect, which is to share. Each one in their own way can share the knowledge of the culture, the beauty of the culture, why do we do certain things in our culture. Make people aware that culture is under attack. We talk about lion getting, tiger getting extinct, rhino getting extinct, so many things are getting extinct, but nobody is bothered about culture getting extinct. The whole culture will get wiped out in another 30-40 years maybe. If we don't do enough for it, we don't know in what kind of a country our children will live. And we will be responsible for it, nobody else. Hence the very title, Battle for Sanskrit, is actually a battle. We are Hindus still sleeping, not even aware that what kind of a war is already happening. In our own lives, we are too busy. So the more we read some of these things, more we become aware, and then each one of us is free to decide in which way we want to stand up for our culture, in which capacity we can contribute and share. Even somebody who teaches Sanskrit or joins a Sanskrit class, there are so many forums. Chinmaya Mission is envisioning a Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, and very soon that will start, a Chinmaya University, which will be offering courses in Indology and make them aware of, get Indian scholars to talk to our countrymen about our culture and do it in a way in which people are able to understand the glory and the essence. So Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth in the centenary year is going to get launched and the courses will start. We already are doing in our own ways. Online Sanskrit courses are there, our centers we do, and many other organizations who are doing such good work to promote and propagate Sanskrit, we must start doing. Nowadays you will see lots of WhatsApp messages come when Modi ji goes somewhere and then these children are chanting Vedic chanting, and somewhere else he goes, some other children are chanting, and then they send those messages. Look how people in the other countries they are chanting. We need to create that in our place here. A function can start with a Vedic chanting, universal prayer. You will see lighting of a lamp in many places. That fortunately still has survived. Prayer has been thrown out many places, and Sanskrit prayer too has gone. But lighting of lamp. But we need to reintroduce. So my point is that in those small ways, when we start, we become proud and practicing, and I'm sure the book here that Rajiv ji has written will throw a lot of light, create so much more awareness, and the knowledge that he is sharing. I have read many of his books earlier also, the Breaking India and Being Different. Indra's Net I am yet to read, and I will definitely go through that. So some of these books, they are eye-opening and they definitely create awareness and give us a right understanding. And so I would suggest we all must and make more and more people aware of what are the issues and let each one take their own stand. So I wish Rajiv ji and the book all success, and may more and more of us be proud and practicing Hindus and great human beings. Thank you.
I now call upon Shri Amish Tripathi ji to share his views and opinions regarding Sri Rajiv Ji's new book, The Battle for Sanskrit.
Thank you, Mr. Malhotra, for inviting me. Thank you, Swamiji. I know all of us, everyone's come here to listen to Mr. Malhotra, so I will not take too much time. I'll keep my speech very short. And look, I'm a storyteller, so I will convey my point through a story. And the story is about my kid, my son Neil. He's 7 years old, so just keep that in mind when I tell you the story. He's 7 years old. In his school, there was a program that was organized. A program organized by an environmentalist. It was supposed to teach environmentalism to a young child. And obviously, my wife and I, Preeti and I, we are very happy that something like this would be done in school. We respect the environment and we want our son to respect the environment as well. And actually, he does. So this program was organized, and in school, the environmentalist would come. She wanted to explain how plants work, to all the students. My son, by the way, is a nature lover. He's a nature freak. He knows all dinosaurs. Because of him, we go on, on safari holidays, etc. I've never been to a jungle before that. I'm not really the jungle type. So this class was happening, and this environmentalist takes out a plant and tells the children in broad terms what photosynthesis is. The sun comes on them, and this is how nutrition is created. And she showed a leaf. देखिए यहाँ पे sun आ रहा है, nutrition create हो रहा है. And there's another leaf which she said, what happens if they are denied sunlight? And there was another leaf in that plant which she covered with an aluminum foil. Now remember, this woman was an environmentalist, so she fights for the environment. She covered a leaf with an aluminum foil over a few days. And she told the children, what do you think you will see when I take this aluminum foil out? It's been there for a few days. She took it out, and obviously, पत्ता जो है मुरझा गया था. There was no sunlight out there. Moment she did that, my son was just horrified. She said, why do you do that? And she said, no, I just want to show you how it works. I said, but you didn't need to kill that leaf to show it how it works. And to me, that was an interesting insight. Both of them are environmentalists. But this environmentalist, the one who was teaching my children, approached the plant as a detached observer. Like a kid with a magnifying glass looking at an ant, or the way students are taught to, in a detached way, dissect a frog. My son was approaching the same plant as a lover. He truly loves nature. And you have to see my son. He gets agitated on environmental. He's 7 years old, so he doesn't know political correctness or anything. So if he's in a restaurant, someone comes to tell him, will you eat this fish? He says, why would I want to kill a fish? He's that way. I mean, I eat chicken, I admit, I eat meat. But he's a lover of nature. And there's a difference in the attitude that you see. And I'd love to see a debate when my son grows up. And a debate between that environmentalist and my son. And I'm not deriding that environmentalist. Of course, she's also fighting for the environment, but her approach is different. My son will also probably be an environmentalist, but as a lover of the environment. And perhaps this is the way our culture is also studied as well. There is a group which studies our culture, but as detached observers, as kids dissecting a frog. And there are some of us who also study our culture, but as lovers of this culture, as devotees of this culture. There's a different attitude. I'm not judging the different ways of life. I'm just saying this is a different attitude. And the problem often, as Swamiji said rightly, is many of us are simply not aware of this knowledge, the way our education system is. I was lucky. The family I was born into, just good fortune of birth. My grandfather was a pandit in Kashi. Both my parents are deeply religious, so I just grew up with all this knowledge. We used to just read these things from a young age. We used to discuss them. So that's how I learned it. And I just want to end with a simple point that loving does not mean that you will not look at your culture with critical eyes. There are things which need to be improved. But the way a detached observer will approach that same issue will be very different as compared to how a lover of that culture will approach things that need to be improved. Even at this age, my parents still tell me on things, beta, तुम्हें ये नहीं करना चाहिए था. But they are my parents. I know they love me. They tell me with a different attitude as compared to someone who doesn't care for me at all. वो कैसे critical feedback देगा भगवान जाने. I might not listen also. So there's a difference in attitude when you truly love something, even when you criticize, and it shows in the words, in the way you speak. And this debate is important between these two groups. But one thing that's critical for a debate is that a debate needs two sides. A debate cannot be a monologue with just one side talking. And in that is what Mr. Malhotra is playing a very important role. Because many of us who are lovers of our culture may not be aware that there is a debate taking place on the other side. Till 10-15 years ago, I'll be honest, my family, we did not even know that there were, and I come from a humble family, I don't come from an upmarket family, so it's not that we used to travel abroad when we were young or anything, but we didn't even know that भाई विदेश में कुछ इंडोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट है, हमारे ऊपर कुछ प्रेक्षण निरीक्षण हो रहा है हमारे कल्चर का, हमें तो मालूम ही नहीं था. You know, we started discovering these books just 10-15 years ago. That's when we started reading. So it's important that even this side which loves our way of life, our ancient culture, gets aware of the other side. And that's the role that Mr. Malhotra has played. Once that happens, there should be an open debate between all the scholars. And even Mr. Malhotra says very clearly in his book, I don't think any point of view should be shut down. All points of view should be celebrated. That is the traditional Indian way. Shastra hamari pratha rahi hai. And all of us, you know, normal people, ordinary people, non-scholarly people, me included, we should sit and listen to these great debates between scholars. We should watch these debates and learn from them and apply what we learn into our own lives. And that's all that I want to say. Beyond that, it should be Mr. Malhotra speaking, and I'm going to sit and listen. If it's okay, perhaps I'll sit down there and listen.
Now it's time to request Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji to speak and interact with us.
Thank you, Swamiji, and thank you, Amish. Swamiji mentioned several interesting points. The people often ask, why does it matter what Indologists are saying? Who cares? So, as Swamiji said, the idea of Aryan-Dravidian divide, of course, matters to us because it's a huge part of politics in India. And until 1800, such a theory didn't exist. It's a creation of the Indologists. Max Miller, in the 1800s, developed the Aryan invasion theory for the first time. And Robert Caldwell, a bishop from Britain, developed the Dravidian theory within 10 years, plus minus. So, colleges were set up by the British in the north, colleges were set up in the south, developing these two divergent theories. And over a few generations, we started accepting it. We started having political fights, political parties because of this. So obviously it matters. What somebody started somewhere matters. It's not just, you know, that who cares. We have to be concerned about all these things. Caste, we had Jati and Varna. Quite flexible, people can change. Varna is based on Guna and Karma. Gita says that very clearly. It doesn't say your father's Guna and your father's or parents' Karma, it says yours. And the Lord Risley, who was the head of the Census Bureau of British people here, he was given the job of counting all the subjects of the empire. So he organized all the jatis into castes, created a hierarchy, official hierarchy to measure people in the census. In every 10 years, for 40 years, every 10 years he did the census. That was the first time ever in the history of India that list of castes with a certain hierarchy had official status of the state, using it to give people, you know, benefits and treat them differently and whatnot. That making official state policy based on this kind of a census of this hierarchy there had never been this sort of thing before, and we are suffering the price of it. Swamiji also mentioned a very, very important point. Itihas being mistranslated as mythology. Many years ago, a friend of mine who was reading I used to have a discussion group in those days, different than the one I currently have. And I used to talk about these issues a lot. So he was a professor in a university, and he told me that in his university they're teaching a course called World Mythologies. And in that, he sent me the curriculum, the syllabus, and said, what do you think they're talking about? Hindu mythology, Greek mythology, African mythology, and so on. So sometimes the prejudice is not stated, but the prejudice is in what's not stated, what's left out. So I said, I do not see in this list of mythologies, I do not see Christian mythology or Islamic mythology or Jewish mythology. And he said, oh, that's interesting. Maybe, I said, no, maybe. You have a religion department. You have a religion department, they're teaching religious studies. It's not that they don't never thought of this. So I said the way would be, you go write a letter, and my friend was incredibly naive, and that's why he actually wrote the letter. So I said, you write a letter saying that it's an interesting course, and I think you should complete it, make it more comprehensive, and students should also learn the Christian mythology and Jewish mythology and Islamic mythology. And he sent me the reply he got was such an angry reply from the dean, saying you have no idea what will happen to the identities of our people if you tell them that their faith is a mythology. So it proved the point. For us, it was being marketed as, oh, we are celebrating the exotic mythology. I said you should go and tell them the exotica of virgin birth, very exotic idea. So I always do this sort of thing, And the long and the short is this fellow got very passionate and he fought a campaign. He later left the university for whatever reason, I don't know what, joined something else. But this was live discussion in our e-group, and it educated a lot of people that this simple, harmless things we accept, try and reverse it on the other guy. Try and reverse it. Now you see, for Westerners, Western mythology is Greek and Latin. That's dead. It's their past. It's the civilizations, pre-Christian civilizations which they conquered. So, of course, that's not their worldview, that's not living. And so those views are myth, Greek myth, Latin myth. You see? That's why Sanskrit Bharati and I both do not like the word classical, Sanskrit as a classical language. Because Greek and Latin, the definition of classic is dead languages that are lived in that sit in a museum. Scholars study it with great respect, like you have some dead ancestors, you have a picture with Mala, is a dead. You respect it, of course, but they're not living, it's not the same thing. So Mandarin is not studied by the Chinese as a classical language. They don't want it in the classical department because they're saying it's old but also living now. Similarly Arabic, similarly Persian. You can be an ancient language and be alive. You don't have to be classical. So this business of respecting us as classical, we all go write checks and say, oh, I'll fund the classical department introducing Sanskrit. But we don't realize that there's a hidden meaning there. You see, for them, it's the language of a dead civilization. Because the Western theory of time and change, history, is different than Itihas. I'm so happy that Swamiji said it. In Itihas, new things happen, but they don't attack, bury, kill the past. There is no disconnect and discontinuity. The person in a particular European country does not think of the prior 100,000 years ago as our heritage. It's sort of like it happened in our soil. The Muslim people do not think of the pyramids were our ancestors. It's our ancestor. It is not part of us because it's a dead civilization. We conquered it, finished off. So in Itihas, you take it forward. It's more cumulative, like in an encyclopedia. You keep adding more knowledge. You don't expunge, you just add more knowledge. So it keeps building up. So we are able to consider all of that as living. Ramayana is living. Something long ago, but it's also alive. We improvise, we adapt it, we dramatize it, we do all those things. So this business of classical, this business of myth has very deep consequences. And I'm so glad Swamiji said that. And I'm also happy that Chinmaya Mission is committing to setting up an Indology university. I am so happy. Because this is one of the major passions for writing this book, is to encourage Swadeshi Indology. So my humble input is not to get Videshi Indologists to come and set it up for us. We are so proud that they are studying us. Are Saab, I'm so honored that you are studying me, that sort of thing. That, kind of a complex we have. Up to we've arrived, sir, because they're also studying us, that sort of thing. But then that study brings with it certain assumptions like the Aryan theory, like all the things we talked about. So if you connect it with spiritual tradition, the Indian scientific inquiry, which is rational, need not be scientific, need not be sacred, but rational, could be sacred, could be looked at in that way, or could be looked at in another way. If you connect it, if you take Indology as consisting of all the knowledge systems and a very indigenous view, I think you'll have a very unique university. And our goal should be to create Indology, be the Indology hub of the world, like we have IT, if we can do IT, we can do pharmaceuticals, we can do diamond exports from here, we can do automobile parts, all kind of industries, we can be the world hub. Why can't we be for Indology? So why is it that we are importing Indology? Yeah. Why? So a lot of people say we're funding those guys, Indians, because we're no good. So I'm saying, if we are no good, then that all the more is a job to make us good, raise the standard of our people, our Indology. If we could, 30 years ago, we were not necessarily a world center for software or many of these, pharmaceutical industries and so on. So our people put their mind to it and said, okay, in one generation we will become world standard. So if we can become world standard in so many things, then we should also become world standard in the study of our own civilization and not outsource that to somebody else. Because the best studies in China, about China, are in Chinese, are in Mandarin, and Chinese people control the studies. And similarly for Arabic, Persian, Japanese, French, Russian, most of the great civilizations that are very proud of themselves, they control the discourse. And we have abandoned that and given it to others. So I'm very happy that Chinmaya Mission is taking the lead in bringing this back. So, Swamiji's also important point about lighting the lamp being discontinued in many places. I've had this in prestigious venues in Delhi. Renting a hall, there's a protocol that we are secular, so you cannot light a lamp. Now imagine Swamiji saying, from our point of view, we are not excluding the guy who is secular or atheist from our point of view. But from their point of view, they're excluding us. So it's a one-way kind of exclusion. And respect has to be mutual. So I'm very happy that these points are made. I'm also I was really impressed, I'm really impressed by the story that Amish is a fantastic storyteller, and I'm so happy that he's writing on our past and our spiritual traditions. And the story of the insider view of environmentalism and the outsider view of environmentalism is amazing. It captures the essence of what I'm writing in this book, the insiders versus the outsiders in the study of Sanskrit and Sanskriti. And while the insider has love and care and rasa, bhav, towards this plant, a certain attitude, the outsider is dry and aloof, separated. So I think that captures it. I would take it even further. In the case of the study of our civilization, it's an important point. The outsider is an insider to his own civilization. He is not an outsider. He is an outsider to us, but an insider to an alternative civilization, and in some ways competing. It's interesting. So it would be like the coach is an outsider to our team. But what if the coach is an insider to his team? That would be. So it's actually, you have to think of the outsider as an insider to his team. So if you give a grant to such an outsider to study us, it's like saying, okay, we'll have General Musharraf who run the military academy for us. The point being that such an outsider, of course, the outsider has advantages that he's not attached and he can be objective and all that, but such an outsider is an insider to something else. Now, in the religious studies in the West, they have their own vocabulary. One of the terms they developed is called God's eye, God's view, which means that this is not a view from your culture, my culture, this is God's view. It means it is sort of outside, it's really objective. It's not contextualized, it's not biased by being inside anything. It's outside, it's God's view. But my response is that who are you to pretend or to know what is God's view? So the whole colonizing mission was a project of claiming that the Western particular view was universal, claiming the universality and objectivity of what is actually the result of Western history, their particular events, their geography, their fights, their wars, whatever happened to them, that resulted in a certain experience, certain philosophies emerged out of that. And brilliant things happened, there's no doubt about that. But to claim that this is God's view, and this is sort of an external view, sort of very arrogant. So I think we're all on the same page on this, the importance of, we should respect all these views. We have a tradition called Purva Paksha, where you study somebody else's views, and then you put that Paksha, you give a response, and they do Purva Paksha on us, and then they give a response to us. So in a sense, you might say, Western Indology is their Purva Paksha of us. Is their Purva Paksha Ramayana, their Purva Paksha Vedas. It is from their particular point of view, a critique of us, an assessment of us. So there's nothing wrong if we do the same back. We also should do Purva Paksha Western Indology. So I'm hoping that Chinmaya Mission's Indology University will have a strong Purva Paksha department of the rest of the world. We never, are strong. People ask me, why did India decline? And I've had many ideas over the years. But recently I've had conversations with some other scholars, well-known scholars in our field. And one of the ideas that's emerging out of these conversations is that we stopped doing Purva Paksha, which means we became ignorant of others. We were at one time vibrant because of this tradition of debate, like Amish said, all views are welcome and we have equal debates. There's no banning of books, burning of books tradition, no blasphemy in our civilization. It's very important. So different ideas can be in play. Not a particular person may accept this one, but it's in play. So there can be a rat temple, maybe long or snake temple. Maybe a long time ago somebody had this. There's no reason to ban it, change it. We have all kinds of social cultural groups in this country. We have transvestites. There is this huge parade going on in USA to get rights for transvestites. I tell them that the Hijras are one of the oldest tribes mentioned in Mahabharata also. We don't need rights. We don't need to parade to get them rights. Nobody denied them rights to begin with. Nobody denied them rights to begin with. So you see, this is how Itihas evolves differently than break in history. Okay, now this new revelation has come, we accept this prophet or we reject it, we'll fight, we'll clash violently. That discontinuity has to do with the idea of prophets bringing change. So there's a prophet who brought 1.0 released, and somebody brought 2.0, and somebody brought 3.0, like that. So in a sense, Judaism is 1.0 because original messages were given only for Jews, And then came Jesus, who said, I'm the Son of God, I bring you an update. And this is a new covenant. Christians respect the old prophets, but they consider this to be new, replacing the previous ones. So you could run DOS, but you're better off running Windows. It's sort of thing. Now the person who's accepting both, the person who says previous one is a legitimate one, it's not a pirated, it's not a virus, it's not, it's a legitimate, but this new one is better. Means that I honor that as a past, but it is obsolete, so you better get onto the new one. If the person who's running the old one accepts this point of view, then he better upgrade. So Jews can't accept Jesus, but Christians can accept Judaism. You understand? You can accept the previous one because it has been superseded by your version, your release, without you being threatened. And you can say in a condescending, patronizing way that they're still running on old gospel, and it's okay, we don't mind it, but they don't know yet, we're trying to convince them. Similar relationship exists between the 2.0 Christianity and the 3.0 Islam. Because Islam accepts all the past prophets. It makes a list of all the Jewish prophets and Jesus and says they're all prophets. Legitimate. But this is the new prophet, therefore the new prophecy supersedes the past. It's new. It's like a lawyer will say that this is a valid contract, it was superseded by this contract, then it was amended by this contract, then this. And so all the contracts are kept on the file. But the latest one predominates and supersedes and prevails over the previous ones. So Islam can have this attitude towards Christianity. But Christianity cannot accept Islam as being legitimate because otherwise you better upgrade. You become Muslims if you feel that way. So this discontinuity of history is a consequence of this whole idea that prophets bring new insights. Whereas I argue in my book, many of the books I've written explain in detail. We have the Rishi state, we have the Adhyatmic state. So it is not some few prophets who can bring this. Everybody has got the Sachitanand potential. Everybody is Sachitanand. And everybody has a higher state of consciousness potential to understand and realize for himself this kind of a thing. So we don't have a discrete list of prophets and the lineage ends. It continues. There is and everyone can have their experience in their own context and have their own interpretation of the same thing. So these are not simple differences, but very profound differences between the continuity of our civilization and the discontinuity that others have. Indians. Another point I want to make is that Western Indology is not just what Westerners are doing. Indians are studying Western Indology, particularly social sciences people. I was at TIS yesterday, had a very interesting event. I have put up the videos, you can watch it now. So I'm going next week to Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. See, I want mutually respectful discussions with opponents. I have never excluded, I always invite them, they just don't come. But from their side, they try to exclude, keep the guy out and whatnot. So I wish that were not the case because it would be good for all of us to learn from each other. I learn a lot from different people, all sorts of people. So the point is that Indology started in Europe as a study of India. We always had our own systems of studying, but a formal system of studying us from the outside started in Europe, and now it is an American-dominated enterprise. Sometimes they call it South Asian studies, sometimes Indology, by whatever name. It is also predominantly an outsider view. Now, the fact of the matter is that every Indian university basically adopts Western ideas of our history, Western ideas of our Sanskriti, a lot of Western ideas in political science, social sciences. These are Western ideas. We haven't generated an Indian Uttar Paksh, our response, our Pratipaksh, our theory. What is our view? We haven't done that. We really don't have an Indian social sciences. It's still colonized most of the time. So while I often target the root of this, which is located in the West, while the root is in the West, the fruits are all over here. So if you want to, rather than one fruit at a time, you have to go to the roots. So that is why I do this. It's not, you cannot just say, okay, that's happening, those people are doing it, we shouldn't bother about it. The point is, it comes here, it affects all of us. And so the franchising of Western ideas about us is rampant. It's a huge industry. It's a huge industry of young people wanting to go get a degree somewhere, come back, become the expert. Then if you're very good, they'll make you editor of a journal or in charge of something. So there's a whole recognition and reward system, and people cannot get bought into that gradually. And then they're alienated before they become substantial, they can become professors and become important people in the study of our civilization. You find that they are more or less like the other side. They are also hating this civilization, always finding something wrong, and it's no good, it's a cause of problems and so on. So you must keep that in mind. Another implication, another consequence of this global study of our civilization is that a lot of our knowledge is being taken away. A lot of the knowledge is studied, taken out of the context of Indian thought, Indian culture, and repackaged and claimed as belonging to someone else, distorted to fit somebody else's paradigm. So now there's Christian yoga, which is rapidly expanding. And there is Vipassana has been separated largely from the Buddhist roots and turned into mindfulness meditation. And Yoga Nidra is becoming lucid dreaming. And transcendental meditation is called relaxation response by Professor Herb Benson at Harvard, who studied TM, learned it, studied TM, did research on TM, and he was part of the TM researchers. So when he found that, he's a neuroscientist, when he found that a lot of extraordinary things were being achieved by TM, rather than continue that research because it would credit the Vedic knowledge, he came up with a parallel system with a new name called relaxation response, put a trademark on it as his own discovery, and then took all that research and came up with it as the research for his technique, when it's actually using transcendental meditation. So this whole system of appropriation of mathematics is a big story. Someone told me that Navya Nyaya, appropriation of Navya Nyaya is one of the most prolific areas of Western philosophy today. He was telling me yesterday. Sad thing is that my bandwidth allows me to produce only one book every year or two. And I have 50 of these ideas, each one of them needs a whole book. So when I told this gentleman yesterday, write me a paper. I mean, our people they know this, but they don't have the, maybe they're lazy, too busy or whatever, but they're not going to sit down and write it up and publish it and fight the battle. You have to do that by being an author. By just telling the story to a few people hardly matters. So we need to take on this battle. Now, I want to take a lot of questions, but just I'll make a few points. Sanskrit and Sanskriti are inseparable. So to protect one, you're protecting the other, and if you destroy one, you're also affecting the other. Sanskrit as an architecture, it's not just a language, it's a structure, and that structure shows up in dance, it shows up in yajna, it reflects mirrors the structure of the cosmos, the whole rhythm of the cosmos. It's in your body, it's outside, it's in medicine, it's in architecture, buildings and whatnot, and raga. So the same structures mirror many domains. Many domains, they map, reflect each other. And the structure, this architecture, consists of many components that are weaved together. And you cannot just arbitrarily eliminate, surgically cut, throw out something without affecting the whole structure. And the problem with some other civilization wanting to appropriate is that not everything will fit, so they will cut out what doesn't fit. What doesn't fit, they cut out. So for instance, in Christian yoga, they cannot accept certain things like karma and reincarnation, that aspect of Yoga Sutra, they cannot accept. There is also a huge movement called Christian Vedanta. Christian Vedanta is a huge movement. There are people written books called Christian Vedanta. Wayne Peacedale, from the Catholic Church, wrote it, and so on, many people. And they've developed a lot of interesting ideas out of that. But the basic metaphysics is a dualistic one, so it cannot accept certain premises. And therefore, while to a naive person, naive Hindu, it looks like they're doing us a favor, they're accepting it, they're respecting it. The fact is, if you look at it in great detail, many important things are surgically removed. And that creates a problem for us. This is where I champion the idea that non-translatables, certain words are non-translatables. They should be preserved. That word should be preserved. Because you translate it to something else, it has a whole history, it has its own baggage, it has its own context, and the original nuance of that word is lost. And that word has no equivalent in the other language because we did not have the same experience. So like Shraddha, you cannot say what is Shraddha. It's like that. Yeah. So they say things like in this, the battle for Sanskrit, I'm critiquing these people who say that there was no concept of nation in India. But I tell them that there was a concept of Rashtra. So I don't have to legitimize myself in your category. I'm fine using my category. It's a concept of we, the common we. And the concept of the common we as a Rashtra is not necessarily the same as a nation, but so what? Why do we have to apologize and claim this way or that way? The persons I'm criticizing also say there's no such thing as Indian civilization in the past. That this is a recent idea for chauvinistic purposes. Say there's a past, it's a unity. And the left wing today tells you that when you say unity of civilization, you're Brahmanical, you're Sanskritized, you're saffronized. What about the Dalits? They have nothing to do with it. What about these? What about those? They try to tell you that. And so the challenge is made that there was no word for it. So I bring up the word Sanskriti. We have a word Sanskriti, which is our collective, understanding, or collective ideas, beliefs, systems, languages, literature, all of that is our Sanskriti. And while it may not be exactly the same as what they call civilization, it is our sense. It's our sense of that. It's something equivalent to that. The oral tradition is another debating point in this book. The Western scholars do not accept the oral tradition's history as part of our history because, for one thing, they can't pronounce things well, and they prefer written to oral. And also, if you want to say that things are not as old as the tradition says, you can say we dismiss the whole oral part of the history because a lot of that past is oral. And the argument given is we don't have reliable data, but that's a practical argument. The other argument given for rejecting the oral tradition is that oral is a very insidious and strong point they make, that the oral tradition, oral knowledge is incapable of progress because when you are doing things orally, you memorize it and it's static. So it's like an iPod and you keep pushing the button and keep repeat the same thing. It's never going to get better and improve and evolve and reflect. Whereas the moment you write, others will challenge it. When knowledge becomes written according to them, then others will challenge it. So when we have literary festivals, literary means written. The oral tradition is not included as part of the literary. Okay, so I would claim that if you look at our history, long before written, the oral knowledge was evolving. You see debates. You see grammar. Before Panini, there's this one, before that one, another one, another one. You see these things evolving. So the evolution of knowledge is there even within the oral tradition. You can't say it's frozen and fixed and static. It is dynamic. So a lot of these debates exist, and some of our own people are kind of, the positions they take, I would argue with. The relationship between Sanskrit and vernaculars is another interesting one. The Western Indologists take the view that they're kind of competing, hostile. Sanskrit is dominant, it's kind of doing violence to the language, it's brought by the foreign guys, and the local vernaculars emerged here, and the Sanskrit kind of controlled and whatnot, and then it imposed its grammar on the others. So it's sort of a asymmetric power game that they show. But actually, the vernaculars were very innovative, being informal. I would say the difference is not dominant versus subordinate. The relationship is formal versus informal, because Sanskrit is a formal, structured grammar, language, and the vernacular is informal. So you can create new buzz, new cool words, and interesting things. You can improvise. You can come up with experiments of new things, and some of them go viral. It happens today. A word is invented, and it goes viral. And so now you're WhatsApping, like that. So you do that, and then if a word becomes part of the vernacular, Sanskrit borrows it, and then Sanskrit exports it to a lot of other languages. So it's kind of an architecture that communicates between this language and that language. It's not about being dominant and subordinate. It's not that. It's sort of the common architecture. What they're now trying to do with English, making it the medium that communicates between language X and language Y. That's sort of thing. But there is hope with technology. There's a new technology of natural language processing in computer science, computational linguistics, where language X can be translated to language Y as you're speaking, without a human being. So you speak in Japanese and it produces in Swahili, and that guy speaks in Swahili and this guy hears in Japanese. This sort of a real-time language translation is emerging very rapidly and becoming better and better. And guess the technology's inner structure is Panini's grammar. It's based on Panini's grammar, because that's the most thorough rules of grammar, rules of linguistics, into which languages can be, all kind of languages can be mapped. So language X, when you're speaking, is broken into this particular linguistic structure, the internal grammar of the computer, which is Paninian engine, and then it is brought out into language Y and put out. So this sort of thing will get better and better, and we'll have a revival of vernaculars, because it will be possible without labor-intensive human beings to take massive amount of text, whether it's legal cases, medical journals, scientific journals, political news, cricket commentary, whatever it is. It will be more and more cost-effective to give it to you in the language of your choice, without so many human beings being involved to do this time-consuming and costly translation. So the return of vernaculars could happen. It's a very interesting product of technology. So I want to conclude with thanking all of you and thanking Swamiji and Amish. This is the final talk of my Bombay part of my tour. My tour started in Bangalore. I had 7 events, including a full-day workshop for a room full of this many kind of people who wanted to do a full-day workshop. And then Chennai, then back to Bangalore, where Shri Ravi Shankar called me to do a big launch in his Art of Living with several thousand people in the open campus. Then went to Ahmedabad, then came to Mumbai, and now I'm heading for Delhi. So usually my book launches start in Delhi. This time I'm ending in Delhi. And then I go back to the US. So I'll have done 23 public events, plus a whole lot of private events. And I really am very glad to see the traction build up. From last time I did it to this time, a lot of traction. So things are, thanks to all of you, I feel there's a lot more people interested in our Sanskriti, and I'm humbled by that, and I'm trying my best to keep up with all the enthusiasm that gets generated. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd love to take any questions. Thank you.
Just there's another Punjabi, Tarak Fatah. Tarak Fatah, heard about her?
Tariq Fateh.
Yeah.
I know Tariq, yes.
So, can we have a common grand narrative, Hindus and Muslims? Because he says he's happy Aurangzeb Road being renamed Aurangzeb Road. He wanted it to be renamed Dara Shikoh Road, but he's happy it's been renamed after our president. So can we have a common grand narrative?
Okay, Dara Shikoh started something, didn't...
Talking about the common grand narrative.
I got your question. Common grand narrative, I'm answering, please. Yeah. Dara Shikoh started this project, Aurangzeb stopped it. That's your point, right? Whether we can have a common grand narrative with Muslims is an interesting thing. First of all, we don't even have a common grand narrative among Hindus. That is a problem. Uh, so it's very challenging because the divergences among sampradayas and paramparas has become too intense, and then add the politics of caste, and then add the claim that Dalits are not part of this grand narrative. It's all a Brahmin conspiracy, and it's all brought by foreign Aryans. So, when you do problem solving, you don't overwhelm yourself by solving a bigger problem right away. You solve the problem you can manage, and then you add more complexity. So you solve it in stages. You solve stage one simple problem, then you add more complexity, more variables. At some point, we have to have a grand narrative of all of India, all Indians, everybody. We have to have a nation. But we have to start with a certain core, and if this core is very open architecture, which I believe it is, then you can accommodate others. For instance, you could accommodate Muslims as jatis. If you have a grand narrative based on the Varna jati structure, then people say we don't want caste. Okay, we don't want caste. But if you look at jati as a structure, then each jati has a jati dharma. Jati has a jati dharma. So Islam could be a jati dharma. Not only that, but Ahmadiyas could be Ahmadiyya jati, and Shiites could be that, and Sunnis could be that, and there could be many kinds of jatis. So these are experimental ideas for brainstorming. As Amish likes to say, we are open to discussion, many ideas. Such brainstorms and sharing of points of view will only happen when it's safe. Right now, it's very difficult to engage different people into a conversation because immediately start attacking. The mere fact that you propose a new idea, rather than playfully experimenting, checking it out, seeing if it works, you're going to be shut down, you're going to be branded. So to create a grand narrative of India requires a participatory project, not top-down. It's not one guy sitting somewhere, write it up and broadcast it. It's not like that. It will be a group of people from various backgrounds who engage in this as a long-term thing that goes on for a while. So that's, in my opinion, a project that needs to happen. I would love to see others join in and discuss this grand narrative of India going on.
So I would like to have your.
You come here,
I could see one a short movie by a white person on the YouTube dealing with pyramids. Regarding there was a drawing which is there inside the pyramid about the Solar Dynasty king who died, and there was a journey. How he went after the death. One of the drawings on the Egyptian pyramid was that same king holding to the tail of a cow. After
the tail of a
cow.
Cow.
So I could directly connect that with the Garud Purana, where we have the same story about how a person's soul goes after death holding to a tail of a cow. I just want to know, do we have some kind of a research going on the connectivity between the Vedic Dharma and the ancient Egypt religion?
Not just ancient Egypt, but many others also.
Yes, even Zoroastrian religion, our
Zoroastrian, of course. Zoroastrian. We have Tali Geri here, who's an eminent author. Can you just stand up? Yeah, please acknowledge him. I've been to various South American, Mexican, South American civilizations and found a lot of Indian type artifacts. And then I went to Anatolia in Turkey, the eastern part of Turkey. And they talk of an ancient civilization with a lot of pottery and stuff like that, which predominated so much stuff in their museums. But of course, their archaeologists and their historians are not looking at it the way we would look at it. And our people haven't gone outside India to do all this research. This is the problem. They have come here, picked up what is of interest to them, what can fit into their scheme of things, and ignore the rest. Yeah, we haven't done it in reverse. If I were a young guy, one of the places I would go and spend a lot of time would be in Turkey, look at all the museums and see. I see lotus. I see the lotus flower having a certain stature similar to what we have here. I see a lot of this art history that we can reinterpret and see if there are historical links between these civilizations from our point of view. That's huge research. And I'm not aware of somebody doing it on a very comprehensive scale. Maybe a little paper comes here, a little YouTube comes there. But to make a shift, you would need a team of people who are doing this on a long-term basis. That's the kind of committed Indology scholarship Westerners did to us. We haven't done this in reverse.
Namaste. Actually, this is a follow-on on to what you're saying right now, and as you put earlier that, okay, why don't people say a lot, but why don't they actually write something? So my question is very simple, that if somebody wants to write something, okay, what does he base it on? Is it, because say, Western academics has a certain very rigid system in which they put their papers down and stuff. So say if somebody who's interested in the subject wants to write a paper, does he develop his own composite system? Does he use the ancient Purva-Paksh system, if that is regenerated or something?
Sure.
Like that?
So that's a good question. The methodology depends on the subject matter. So the example I gave you is a person who says that Navinyaya, system of thought, debate and philosophy, logic, is the basis of inspiring a lot of people. So for him his methodology, I guess, would be, he says that a lot of these people have translated Gangesh, who did Navinyaya. They've translated, even one chapter of Gangesh is like a 600-page book. It's a huge system. So these people have first translated, then they've taught it to their students. Then the students have taken this knowledge and developed some original system of their own. So you can actually, from this parampara of scholars, several of these paramparas of scholars, you can show how their study of Navinyaya in 2-3 generations of scholars has led to all these new thought. You can show that. I can show what has been Vivekananda's influence in so many Western thinkers that have erased Vivekananda and started sometimes abusing him. I can show this in various, so it depends on the subject matter. The evidence you have to produce to make your case of influence depends on what you are doing. So mathematics, you can show that the Pythagoras theorem is not really original at all. You can show it. You can show that a more general version existed. And Pythagoras, and you should watch this YouTube of my book launch in Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. I put up this. Radha Narasimha, who is Padam Vibhushan and one of the most eminent rocket scientists and hardcore no-nonsense scientists, he makes the case that Pythagoras was not even known until 500 years after his death. Somebody comes up with this and attributes it to Pythagoras. But Pythagoras himself, during his life, hadn't come up with these things. So this is also a distortion. Somebody came up with a small subset of the Indian theory, and wanted to attribute it to a Western thinker, and came up with this Pythagoras. So each case has its own argument and the data it needs. But I would appeal to you that it's very important to not engage in exaggeration. We have a lot of people, some people, talking about nuclear bombs in the Mahabharata. And I always tell them, you need to take a Geiger counter to a crater and see if there is radioactivity. Because by measuring the radioactivity, you can tell how many thousands of years ago bomb was exploded, because the radioactivity doesn't go away for lakhs of years. Okay? And until somebody can do that and make it available for all the scientists to check it out, you can't just make a claim. And if you want to make a claim of Pushpak Viman the same way, you have to show that such a thing existed by some physical evidence. So in some cases, the evidence is literary, is written like mathematics. In some cases, you're studying the Delhi Iron Pillar, and you're looking at the quality of steel, and you can date it. You can figure out by engineering techniques, you can figure out how it was manufactured. So you can say in such and such year, they had such and such technology by evidence. So I think the evidence required to prove your case depends on the particular thing that you're trying to prove.
I just want to ask, Sanskrit has been mistranslated very often. Sanskrit has been mistranslated very often.
Okay.
Is it because one word has many meanings? Or
Well,
how do we tackle it?
Yeah,
How do
so
we tackle this
one word
translation?
can have many meanings. It can be based on a very rich context. Like take the word lingam. It's been translated as palace. But lingam is sign. In grammar it's sign. So it's fair to say Statue of Liberty is America's lingam. It's fair to say. American flag is a lingam of America. It's a sign, it's a symbol of America. right? So the use of the word lingam in Panini's grammar is profound. So the word can have a lot of meanings in the context in which it is utilized. And often these glossaries tend to be very simplified. There's one word and one phrase or word that substitutes for it. It's wrong. So Atman is not soul, because plants don't have, animals don't have soul. In our case, even plants have Atman. And the church used to argue, there was a debate on whether blacks have souls. because the argument was that how can you have slavery? So they've said, well, maybe they don't have souls. Maybe the Native Americans don't have souls or something. A debate was even made in the medieval era church whether women have souls. So you could ask all the feminists to go after those guys. But I think the feminists got enough to do already. So, so this translation gets you into trouble. A word is a forest, it's an ecosystem of meanings and context. Huge ecosystem. It depends on several words, it depends on this context, it means that, it brings in, drags in a lot of stories about its usage. And so when you take that word, cut it out, and put it in another word, you've introduced a whole new ecosystem. Now that's fine if you're doing that playfully for fun, for excitement and all that. If you're doing it intensely, it's fine. But if the person who reads it thinks that he's actually getting the original idea, that could be a trick. That could be very tricky. It could mislead.
The question which I'd like to ask is, in India today, we have various organizations, we have various castes, sect, and all those things. Like in example, if you take in Maharashtra, we have Brahman society, we have Saraswat Brahman, Koknasta Brahman. I come from I'm from Kerala, so you have Nayar Samajam and all those type of things. But none of these organizations are connected to any mother body. So why can't we have a Hindu universal society, which can be a mother body to all these small organizations? There are many in our country. And why can't we have the consolidator of all groups, which can fight for the rights of all the Hindus, irrespective of all where they belong and which language they belong? And they can also work for removing all the misunderstandings within our culture, within our people. And they can also help to impart teachings to our people. Why can't we have a universal, uniform body, sir?
Good, I'll answer that. So, to unify the diversity of Hindus, it would be good, provided you don't destroy the diversity. The diversity of the ecosystem. It's like, why can't we have one plant? Why do we need so many flowers? Why can't we have one good flower and replace all the flowers? Well, then you destroy these flowers. So the creativity of our tradition is the ability to mushroom diversity. What I don't want to unify is the spiritual interpretations, practices, the different kinds of rituals. Let everybody have their own. And nor is it possible in a practical way. I have tremendous relationships with many organizations because I never mess with their philosophy, their ritual, their guru, their particular parampara, with their system, what they are doing, how they're dressing, what their whole lifestyle is. I never do that because I think they have a right, and that's their business. It's called home affairs. I try to get involved in foreign affairs, which means how to deal with outsiders. What is the common thing that every Hindu should know? What are the common issues that we're all facing? All of us are facing, So I think the unity, the scope of the unity should be on external affairs, which none of them are very good at. They all need help. They're all very excited, saying, okay, come and you become the teacher of us, you join our place and teach this course. I've taught courses in several such places. But I always teach only about the outside world and not ever mess with what their guru is teaching, because I don't want to. So I think the traditional fights are because people were trying to defeat the other on their core ideas. And if a Hindu goes and says, okay, my Advait versus your Vishisht Advait, or versus your Advait, and my Shaivism idea, or my Tantra idea versus your this idea, that is a recipe for more conflict. So first, thing we have to do is to define what is within the scope of a particular organization and its lineage that others should respect and say, okay, that's yours, fine, I have my own. And define common areas where all of them need common help. We all need to take our temples back, we all need to resist conversion, we all need to this denigration and misinterpretation, we have to fight. We all have to get rid of this internal structuring, this internal economic disparity that is weakening our society. So we can make a list of plenty of things to have common. And then we should say that beyond this, we're not going to be boring. That is the first thing you have to do. Now, the two bodies exist that I know of that are potential candidates. A new body that Swami Dayananda Saraswati started is called the Hindu Dharmacharya Sabha. In fact, I've been a keynote speaker there a few times. I invited February 20th, they're having their conclave, their Hindu Dharmacharya Sabha in Goa. I'm again invited. I'm not sure I'll be able to go because I'm going to the US. But that's a good organization. They're trying these things. Then the very old one, there are akhadas. Akhadas are the groups of sadhus that literally, they own the Kumbh Mela. The Kumbh Mela is run by them. It's their Mela. Others are tourists and guests. But it is the akhadas that officially, for 8,000 years, they have records of running the Kumbh Mela. Okay. Now these akhadas, there are 13 major akhadas today. There were others, 13 akhadas that survive, that are active. They have a total of 20 lakh members. That's a lot of 2 million sadhus are members of these. Now these 13 akhadas have a council that is all of them together. It's called Akhil Bharati Akhada Parishad, based in Haridwar. I have just received a strong endorsement of my book from the head of that, which is a very, very big thing because they normally don't do it. So one of the things I found out, and the reason I got to know them is there's a booklet being sent around called The Hijacking of the Kumbh Mela. Somebody should give I would like Amish to have one and Swamiji also to have a copy if you can get one. So I wrote this article on the threats facing the Kumbh Mela. And somebody printed it in English and Hindi and they sent it around. So these Akhada Parishad people got quite concerned and they want to talk to me. So they are interested in advancing, in entering the 21st century, in figuring out how they can protect Hinduism, because the Akhadas were there for that purpose. And in the process of getting to know me, I also got this endorsement, wonderful letter for them. But my real hope is to influence them in a way to bring about this unity that you're talking about. Maybe the Akhada Parishad can lend credibility. So it's all early stage. We have not been used to this, but there are common projects. Akhadas have got lakhs of temples also, and they want them back. So there's common projects. I think if you go to the Hindu organizations and say, I'm going to get your temples back, they'll join up for that. If you say we're all going to talk philosophy and have one common and all that, no way. You see. So if you say, okay, we're going to come up with a lobby against conversion, they'll join up for that. So I think you've got to make it topic specific, project specific, and you'll get support. That's what we have to learn to do more. Good question. Thank you.
So my question is related to your previous book, Being Different, where you mentioned about Smriti is different and Shruti is different. So can we have some more examples, and can you elaborate on how Shruti is it mixed of both Smriti and Shruti, or it's just complete Shruti?
No, it is Shruti. Shruti is eternal, and Shruti is revealed in a certain state of consciousness to a rishi. Okay. Smriti is human being writing. So you write Itihas, you write Manusmriti, you write. So today, the Maharashtra Assembly passes some rules. That's a Smriti. That's some rules like there is Manusmriti passing some describing do's and don'ts. So now we have modern Smritis in a sense. So Smritis are changing. They are human constructed. They are not eternal, and therefore they can be changed. So this much maligned Manusmriti is for Manu's era, and Manu even says that this is for his time and place, and he even says that what is good in the north may not be good in the south, what is good in one time may not be good in another time, what is good for one jati may not be good for another jati. Manu says that all the time. So we cannot freeze the Smriti as some kind of a canonical law, like Christianity has canonical law. Yeah. Now, the Abrahamic religions did not separate Shruti and Smriti, so they put the two together. So therefore, what ought to be changeable with historical context and what ought to be eternal are mixed up. So therefore, the book is frozen. Therefore, they're stuck. They can't change because you're considered to be committing blasphemy. You are tampering with this fixed book. Yeah. So a lot of things that they put in those books were for that era. If they had kept it separately as Smriti, they would be more fluid and dynamic. One of the things we need is people to write Smritis now, new Smritis. We need to write new Smritis. We need to write the Itihas of the Mughal time. We need to write Mughal Itihas. We need to write British colonial Itihas. We need to write the postmodern Itihas of today. We need to write modern secularism, the Itihas of that. We need to write. And we need to have theatre. We need to have IMAX. And I'm hoping good, brilliant writers like Amish will do the Itihas of colonialism and how it affected us. It's a great, big, huge project, and we have to write it. So Itihas didn't just, Itihas shouldn't just stop at some year. There is Itihas happening. As Swamiji said, Itihas is that which happened. But that which happened didn't just stop at that time. The more things kept happening. But we have not written the Itihas. So we have certain frameworks, certain genres. These are considered genres. We have these genres, but in those genres we need to write more. So that's what how I would look at this. Thank you.
Just last question about atheism. Is it right now we have a lot of atheists from the Western world. You have Christopher Hitchens, you have Walter Hawkins, kind of Sam Harris. But are they from the Abrahamic point of view atheists, or they are like generally they're atheists from our point of view also?
Okay, that's another good question. The closest equivalent I've introduced in this book, I've introduced Charvaks. And I have a section called Return of the Charvaks. I want to one day write some kind of a story of return of these Charvaks coming, some grand story of some sort. The Charvaks 1.0 were basically anti-Vedic. They dismissed the Vedas, they dismissed the transcendent realm, the Paramarthika realm, the spiritual realm, and they, so that was, we debated them, Vedic people debated them. They're good scholars. It's not that they were bad scholars. They just made certain assumptions that were different than the Vedic assumptions. You cannot hold them, you cannot sort of attack them on a personal level. They just had a particular worldview. Today, Charvak 2.0 are much more assertive and aggressive. They have more power, they have money, they come from big civilization, world conquerors, and so they have more resources. They've also developed a lot more theory than the early Charvak. They've developed Marxism, they've developed postmodern theory, they've developed literary theory, they've developed so many these Enlightenment, European Enlightenment theories. So the Western philosophy of the last few centuries is sort of a Charvak 2.0 philosophy. So the Videshi Indology is largely a Charvak Indology and also Judeo-Christian Indology, because they are not atheists. But they believe in the transcendent reality as per the Bible. So they are not just outsiders, but insiders of another worldview. The Charvaks are also insiders of a worldview. I mean, they're not neutral. They're also got their worldview, which is a Charvak worldview. So the reason I introduced Charvak 2.0 is that rather than getting angry at these Indologists and hoping they'll change and go away, which is not likely to happen, we should think of them as Charvaks that we debated once. We did Purv Paksh of those Charvaks, we did Uttar Paksh of those Charvaks. So we'll do it again. The problem is not with the Charvaks, problem is our insiders have not done their job. I went and spoke to a couple of very powerful Sanskrit universities in the south, And all the room this size or more filled with their traditional scholars, the vice chancellor, the senior people in their faculty. All of them admitted that, yeah, we need to do Purva Pakshi, we haven't done it. So there is a certain lethargy, lazy, sometimes arrogance, dismissiveness of other people rather than taking them seriously. In this book, I don't scold the outsiders. I only scold the insiders. Because it's like, you know, if your cricket match, if your batsmen are getting out very quickly, you can't go and blame the bowlers of the other side. Yeah, क्यों कर रहे हैं ऐसे? मत इतना ball मत फेंकें. धीरे धीरे करें. The point is, you have to improve your own game. So you have to pull up your own batsmen and say, why can't you play against these guys? So our insiders are the people we have to take to task. Why aren't you producing? Why wasn't there any Purva Paksh of Marxism? Our Sanskrit scholars are so brilliant, they've done Purva Paksh of all kind of very hair-splitting, logic and argument. Why hasn't there been a very solid Purva Paksh of Marxism written in Sanskrit, taught in all the Sanskrit academies, taught in all the Swami Sadhu training? Siddhabari, where Chinmaya mission trains the new sadhus, should have comparative religion. They should do Purva Paksh of all kinds of Charvak 2.0 and Judeo-Christians. They should do Purva Paksh. And if they do the Purva Paksh, then it will be part of the Acharya's knowledge. And when the Acharya goes around teaching thousands of people during his life, he will be telling them how to interpret those people, how to respond. You know, every Christian seminary, which is major one, where they're teaching priests, sort of like our sadhus and acharyas, every Christian seminary, there's a big one in Princeton, I go there, listen to what they're doing. They got big faculty on comparative study of Hinduism. So the one I know, they got one on Dalit Christianity. They got one on Vaishnavas versus Shaivites. Like that. They've got one on, tantric systems. So they got specialized people who really spend their whole life understanding one little aspect of us. And these people are very smart. They know the language, they come here every year, they pretend like they are one of us. So they come here and become the insider, to gain knowledge. They go back and they are teaching the outsiders. So this sophisticated study of us goes on. We are not doing this. So I'm hoping one of the things the Chinmaya Mission Indology University will do is create people who are really sometimes infiltrating the other side, understanding what they're up to, what is their strategy, coming back and teaching us so that our next generation of sadhus and swamis are very sharp and trained how to teach them. In more and more American churches, you will find there is a trained priest on a topic like science and religion. He talks quantum physics, and he talks genetics, and he talks all of that. He's gone through these Templeton training programs, how to make science Christian friendly and Christianity science friendly. So he's an expert on that. So when you're going to a certain type of audience, very intelligent people, he's a good speaker. He's not some guy who just read it in the newspaper or watched CNN. He's really gone through training. If young member, somebody who's a member of that church says, my son is dating this Hindu girl and might marry her, what do I do? If such a Indian couple comes to priest in the temple, he'll say, we don't know what to do. He'll say, सब कुछ सही नहीं है, उनको बुला दो. We'll do some पूजा कर देंगे, शादी यहाँ करवा देंगे, ठीक हो जाएगा. But I've seen people go to a rabbi, Jewish rabbi, because I have some friends who had this situation where a Hindu kid is considering marrying a Jewish. They went to the rabbi who gave them a lot of counseling, how to become a Jewish person, what the process is, what are the do's and don'ts. Counseling the Jewish person privately, do you really want to marry the Hindu? What would happen if you married? And is that person willing to convert? What are the procedures, very complicated procedures to become a Jew? In the case of Christianity, it's very easy to become a Christian. So a lot of counseling goes on interfaith marriages. They have they have a department of Christianity and science. They have a whole department of interfaith marriages, Christianity marrying somebody non-Christian, what to do about it, how to counsel the parents. So one of the earliest memories I have is a cousin of mine married this Catholic girl. This is like in the 1970s. And they stayed in our house. Their parents came from India. Parents were very upset, both sides. But they reconciled, these two kids wanted to marry. The marriage had two parts. There was a Hindu part in a Hindu temple and a Christian part in a church. Huge difference. The Christian marriage, the priest made very profound statements about Christianity, welcoming this guy to join, a lot of private counseling, lot of connecting them with young people that could keep becoming their friends, making them feel at home. None of this sophistication from the Hindu Pujari side. He just did his thing and come. So we have problems like that in terms of understanding the other and so on.
Sir, in this era wherein people are confused about dharma and karma, okay, we have a very clear understanding among kids and the young generation that okay, they are studying in India, they are going out of India. Brain drain is very common philosophy in India. So my question is, sir, what is your comments on this? How can we reduce the brain drain which is happening in India?
So I think you're mixing many questions. How to teach them about karma, dharma is one issue. And I think that is where Swamiji, in our Hindu organization are the experts who go and teach them dharma, karma. Whenever somebody asks me, I don't try to be a guru, teach them. I have my own guru and I have learned from there and practice. But I always tell people, go join a proper organization, join Chinmaya Mission, join one of these organizations, and they have a complete curriculum, dharma, karma, to go and learn these things. You should go to a system, proper institution. If you get transferred from one city to another, they got a place there also. So join an organization like Chinmaya Mission to learn. But the other part of your question is brain drain. That has really nothing to do with this. Brain drain is more of a Indians in general of any kind, nothing to do with the dharma or karma, but going to a foreign country, I guess that's your idea of brain drain. See, in a global economy, it's going to happen. People are going to move here, there. Question is, can they carry the dharma with them? Can they carry the dharma with them? And when I was raising my children in the US, we did not have Bal Vihar of Chinmaya Mission. It was still very embryonic. But nowadays, I tell my friends, go at a very early age, take them to Bal Vihar. Take them to Bal Vihar, and the kids will be learning with others. They'll learn how, as a collective group, we can assert our identity in school. We don't have to be embarrassed. Somebody's saying, why your mother got a dot on the head or something. You don't have to say, oh, she's not my mother, she's not my mother. Yeah. You don't have to be embarrassed. This sort of thing happens, I mean, I know that. I know when I first arrived in the US, I was 20 years old. I was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, South, very liberal university, but very, very conservative redneck society, in those days at least. So the host family, they're all beautiful, loving host families in America. They like to adopt a foreign student and make him part of their family, So I always had host families, and I learned a lot, taught them a lot also. So this host family, over Thanksgiving, the topic at the dinner table was that one of their daughters wanted to have a nose ring. And in those days, it was taboo to have even earring. White women did not have earring until recently. You look at old pictures, they don't have earring. Yes, dear, it's not considered. It was sort of like some hippies did. Sort of a counterculture, is not part of being Westerner. Sort of too rebellious, like having a big tattoo or something, or punk hair. It's sort of like rebellious. In those days, earring was like that. And nose ring was considered outrageous. So I was part of listening to all this. And now it's cool to have this nose ring. Earring, of course, no, but nose ring is cool. So all these things are negotiated as part of mainstream. They come as a pop culture, they come as a counterculture. And then some of these things negotiate their way and become part of the mainstream. So Indians have to be very clear who we are, what is our lifestyle. When you go to another country, what do we project publicly? Muslims are very clear on this matter. Muslims are clear, quite, because the mosque teaches not only theology and Paramarthika and philosophy and sacred aspect, but also social aspect. The mosque teaches social aspect, how you answer these questions. What are the 10 important questions that you should know how to answer because somebody will ask you. So our teachers have not developed the same repertoire of social engagement yet, but I think they're getting sophisticated. So this is a fine area where I often get invited to give talks. So Chinmaya Mission in Washington DC has invited me many times to give huge talks to hundreds and hundreds of people, answering questions and answers of their children on these matters, Toronto also, and various other organizations. So the interest level is definitely there. The interest level is there that simply learning the academic side is not going to protect the child when they grow up and they face a barrage of questions and challenges and how they're different from others and whatnot in various cultural ways, and they have to survive and answer those and assert themselves. So that kind of teaching is now being considered very important.
मेरा सवाल ये है कि ये तो मैं यहाँ आया भाषण सुनने के लिए आपका संस्कृत और संस्कृति कई सवाल उठे हैं और हम कैसे एक हों इसके ऊपर भी चर्चा हुई है। मेरा एक छोटा सवाल है कि ये जो लिपि है चाइना में कई भाषाएं कई हैं, कैंटोनीज है, मैंडारिन है और स्टैंडर्ड भी चाइनीज भी है, लेकिन उनकी लिपि एक है। तो ये यदि लिपि एक होती है सब भाषाओं की और संस्कृत से जैसे देवनागरी है तो आपस में मिलने का जो लोगों को समझने का है तो वो सब बढ़ेगा तो हमारी एकता में ये होगी। ये मेरा आपसे प्रार्थना है कि आप इसके ऊपर जरा ध्यान दें।
ठीक है, बहुत बढ़िया बात। नेक्स्ट, अच्छा कमेंट।
Out of the 5 major religions of the world, like Zoroastrian religion, Jewish religion,
we know the list. We know this.
only 2 religions are proselytizing religions, and they are being successful now: Islam and Christianity.
Yes, we are.
We, I think, should change our direction and make Hindu religion as a proselytizing religion. That's the only way to fight this illness.
Okay, so before proselytizing others, we have to first proselytize the Hindus. So we need to have Hindu missionaries to go and preach to Hindus. Most of the Hindus themselves are not Hindus. So, comedy ठीक है ना ये? We have to have pracharaks for our own missionaries. We need to create Hindu missionaries. We need to create a Hindu seminary. Yeah, but priests knowledgeable, modern, in different languages and all that. Very tech savvy, very Google savvy, Facebook savvy, these kind of people, social media savvy. So ऐसे होने चाहिए. And we have to first proselytize and convert Hindus back to something solid. And this requires change of position. You cannot go on saying all religions are the same and then say we are concerned that he converts. A person who is a very distant sort of relative kind of converted, and his argument was कि it's good for business and profession. मैं अमेरिका में रहता हूँ, यहीं का religion होना चाहिए because India में मेरे mother father ने कहा था all religions are same, तो problem क्या? And that is true. And he said कि हमारे घर जो गुरु आते थे वो भी कहते सब religion सेम है, तो सब सेम है तो मैं convert हो गया यहाँ पर मैं American, I become an Americanized religion, वो भी सब सेम है. So we have to be very clear. If you want a distinctiveness, then you should stop this policy that all religions are same. You can say I respect all religions, but they are different. I respect all religions, like I respect all the cuisines. Yeah? I respect all the cuisines, but I don't want my aloo paratha to be considered a pizza. Because if you say aloo paratha to pizza ही होता है, then pretty soon वो pizza ही लगेगा. It will not even taste different because the guy will think ऐसे ही होगा. If you say कि जो डोसा है, it's a pancake. ये South Indian pancake होता है, वहाँ पर rice बनती है. But pretty soon the dosa wala will also be just making pancake. So if you want to keep its distinctiveness, then you have to have a strategy on that basis. On the other hand, if you say it doesn't really matter, then don't argue if they convert, because maybe we should all be converted to something that problem चले जाएगी. We will not have so many arguments. So सब लोग कर दो, सब मंदिरों को चर्च बना दो, ऊपर क्रॉस लगा दो, and सबको You know, they'll be so happy, probably we can make a lot of money also doing this. We should demand a high valuation price. We should say per convert we need X amount. And we bid it out to Muslims also and Christians also. And we said, who give us highest bid and we convert, because it doesn't matter. So either we have to be serious that it does matter, and we should quit this nonsense about all religions the same, or if it doesn't matter, then we should just not bother with fighting conversion. We have to be very consistent, and the same organizations are talking from both sides. This is the problem.
This is just an appreciation of your Bhagirat mission, vision, and the action which you are taking. I have been a professor at least for 50 years. I will only say, Maithili Sharngupta wrote a Bharat Bharati book, and where he said, हम कौन थे क्या हो गए और कौन क्या होंगे अभी, आओ विचारें आज मिलकर ये समस्याएं सभी, जिसको निज गौरव तथा निज देश का कुछ ध्यान है, वो नर नहीं, नर पक्ष नरा और पृथक समान है। मानस भवन में आर्य जन जिनकी उतारे आरती, भगवान भारतवर्ष में गूंजे हमारी भारती, गूंजे हमारी।